Hello, welcome to the channel Why Stories. Enjoy watching.
Upon learning about her quiet daughter-in-law's inheritance, the mother-in-law swooped in like a hawk that very same day, certain she would trick the naive fool out of every last cent. But the moment she stepped over the threshold of her apartment, she froze in shock. Hello, dear listeners. We're glad to see you on our channel. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you'll be the first to hear our new stories. Maria woke up at 6:30, as always. The alarm clock was silent. Her internal clock had been working flawlessly for 7 years, ever since she started raising her daughter alone. The apartment greeted her with familiar silence. A 2-room flat in an old building. 6-square-meter kitchen. A hallway as narrow as a pencil case. But the windows faced the sunny side. That was a comfort. Maria switched on the kettle and looked in the mirror. 37 years old. Her face looked tired, but not worn out. Ash blonde hair tied back in a ponytail. No one to impress. No one but her daughter. Elena, time to get up. Maria called, knocking on the bedroom door. A grumble of protest came from behind the door. 15 years old, the age when warning feels like a personal insult. Maria smiled and went to make breakfast. Oatmeal with milk. Cheese sandwiches. Sweet tea. Simple food for a simple life. Mom, is Grandma coming today? Elena asked, stumbling into the kitchen, messy and sleepy. Maria felt her shoulders tense on their own. Dolores Moreno, her mother-in-law, a woman who saw it as her duty to monitor her daughter-in-law's every step. I don't know, honey. Maybe, Maria replied quietly. I hope not, Elena said honestly. She always finds something to complain about. Maria didn't answer. What could she say? That Grandma really had turned their life into one long inspection? That every visit ended in criticism and unsolicited advice? Finish up, or you'll be late for school, Maria said gently. Elena obediently finished her oatmeal, grabbed her backpack, and kissed her mother on the cheek. Bye, Mom. Don't be sad if Grandma shows up. The door slammed. The apartment was quiet again. 7 years ago, when Sergio suddenly collapsed in the kitchen clutching his chest, Maria thought, this is the end. The end of the family, the end of their plans. The end of a normal life. Elena was 8 at the time. The girl didn't understand why Dad wouldn't get up anymore. Why Mom cried at night, thinking her daughter was asleep. The first months were like a fog, funeral, paperwork, job hunting. And the constant presence of Dolores Moreno. At first, Maria was grateful for the help, with the child, with the household. But little by little, the help turned into control. Advice turned into reproach. Involvement became interference. You're making gazpacho wrong. Sergio liked it another way. Why does Elena have so many toys? You're spoiling her. You don't know how to manage money. Good thing my son doesn't have to see this. Maria endured it. Not out of weakness, but for Elena's sake. The girl had already lost her father. Should she lose her grandmother too? Maria gathered the dishes, washed the plates, wiped the table. She got herself ready and left for work. Accounting at a small firm. Numbers, reports, taxes. A quiet job for a quiet life. The day went by as usual, phone calls, documents, calculator. Colleagues sometimes complained about their salaries. Maria stayed silent. She had a roof over her head and could feed her daughter. That was enough. At 6 p.m., Maria returned home. She climbed to the 3rd floor, took out her keys, and froze. At the door stood Dolores Moreno. A woman of about 65. Stout figure. Hair neatly styled. Face disapproving, as always. A bag in her hands. Determination in her eyes. Ah, Maria. Finally. How long are you going to keep me waiting? Dolores said irritably. Good evening, Senora Dolores. Please, come in, Maria replied politely. Maria unlocked the door. Dolores stepped in first, heading straight to the kitchen. Her gaze swept over everything, sharp and critical. Still buying this cheap food, she grumbled, peering into the fridge. Elena's gotten so thin. Can't even feed your own child properly. Maria silently hung up her jacket. A familiar ache tugged in her chest. 7 years of the same reproaches. 7 years of patience. Would you like some tea? Maria asked softly. Yes. But not from those tea bags. Brew some real tea, Dolores ordered. She settled at the table and unpacked her bag, several magazines, a packet of cookies, some medicine. My blood pressure's acting up again, the mother-in-law complained. Doctor says it's nerves. But how can I not be nervous when my son is dead and his widow lives however she pleases? Maria set the kettle on the stove. Took out the loose tea. Her hands didn't tremble. Habit. What happened? Maria asked cautiously. What happened? Dolores snapped. What happened is that you've completely lost your sense of shame. You're raising Elena all wrong. Wasting money on who knows what. Letting the house go to ruin. Maria looked around. A clean kitchen. Freshly mopped floors. Pressed curtains. What exactly is in ruins, Senora Dolores? If you mean the new sneakers I bought Elena. I do mean that. Dolores cut her off sharply. Why does a child need such expensive sneakers? To show off at school? When I was your age, I made do with whatever I had. Maria poured boiling water into the teapot. Waited. Then poured the tea into cups and placed one in front of her mother-in-law. Elena's growing. Her old sneakers are too small, Maria explained calmly. You could have just bought a size up at a regular store. But no, you had to drag yourself into some trendy boutique. Money down the drain, Dolores grumbled. She took a sip of tea and grimaced. Too weak. And not enough sugar. You know I like it sweet. Maria added sugar. She didn't remind her mother-in-law that the doctor had told her to cut back on sugar. She didn't mention that the sneakers were from a regular sports store, on sale, paid for with her own money. One more thing, Dolores continued sternly. Elena gives me strange looks. Doesn't even greet me properly. Where's the upbringing? Elena is a polite girl, Maria replied softly. Polite? Dolores scoffed. Yesterday she talked back to me when I said her dress was too short. Said it was modern. Can you imagine? Talking back to her grandmother. Maria remembered the previous evening. Elena had come home upset. Told her how Grandma had criticized her dress in front of her friends. The girl was ashamed, hurt. But all Maria did was stroke her daughter's hair. Silent, as always. I'll talk to Elena, Maria promised. You'll talk? What good will that do? You don't even know how to raise a child. You have no experience, Dolores said with disdain. She took out some cookies and began eating, crunching loudly. My Sergio, God rest his soul, never talked back to me. Respected his mother. But Elena? She's growing up spoiled. Sergio, Maria's husband, Elena's father. The man who died of a heart attack 7 years ago. Suddenly. At just 32. Maria remembered him differently, kind, caring. But around his mother, Sergio had stayed silent. Agreed, never argued. Even when Dolores was wrong. Listen, Maria, Dolores leaned across the table, I've been thinking. Maybe it's time you started up your personal life again? Maria looked up in surprise. They had never touched on this topic before. What do you mean? She asked cautiously. Get remarried. Elena needs a father, and you need help. I know a good man, a widower, very respectable, Dolores said with confidence. Senora Dolores, I'm not ready. Not ready, the mother-in-law interrupted, offended. 7 years have passed. How long are you going to grieve? Life goes on. Besides, it's clear you're struggling on your own. Maria looked out the window. Evening was falling. Elena would be home from her extracurriculars soon. It would be nice to have a moment alone before that. I'll think about it, Maria said quietly. Good. You've become so self-absorbed lately. Turned into an egoist, Dolores concluded with satisfaction. She finished her tea, gathered her things, and stood up. Well, I'll go. I'll stop by again tomorrow. We'll talk properly. I'll help you with Elena's upbringing. Dolores left, slamming the door. Maria remained alone in the kitchen. Quiet, peaceful, almost pleasant. She cleared the cups, washed the dishes, made dinner for her daughter. Simple, familiar tasks. They brought calm. At 8 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Elena had come home, cheerful but tired. Hi, Mom. Did Dolores come by? Elena asked, taking off her jacket. She did, Maria answered briefly. Oh no. What did she want? The usual. To talk. Elena grimaced. She sat at the table and started eating potatoes with meat patties. She ate slowly. Maria could tell something was bothering her. Mom, do you remember how Dad used to laugh at Grandma's nagging? Elena asked suddenly. Maria froze. Elena rarely spoke about her father, she had been too young. I remember, Maria replied cautiously. Dad used to whisper to me, don't listen to Grandma. She's just worried, and then he'd wink. Remember? Yes, Maria remembered. Sergio really did do that. He protected his wife and daughter, but gently, without confronting his mother. And he promised to teach me how to drive when I turned 16, Elena said dreamily. Said he'd buy me a little red car. A real one, just small. Tears rose to Maria's throat. She sat down beside her daughter. Your father loved you very much, she said softly. I know. He loved you too. And he wouldn't want Grandma upsetting you, Elena said seriously. Mom, can I ask you something? Elena added. Of course. Why do you listen to her? Dolores always complains, nags, makes you upset. Maria looked at her daughter. Such a smart child. She saw everything. Understood more than she let on. She's your father's mother. You need to respect your elders, Maria explained cautiously. But Dolores is often wrong. And she's rude to you, Elena insisted. Elena, don't judge her too harshly. Dolores has had a hard life. She lost her son. And you lost your husband. But you don't yell at everyone, Elena pointed out reasonably. Maria gently stroked her daughter's hair. Finish eating. Then you can do your homework, she said softly. Elena nodded, but it was clear the subject was still on her mind. The evening passed peacefully, homework, tea, some TV. An ordinary family evening, if not for the weight in Maria's chest after her mother-in-law's visit. At 10 o'clock, the phone rang. Maria picked up the receiver. Hello, she answered carefully. Good evening. This is the notary office. My name is Victor Estrada. I'm looking for Maria Rodriguez. That's me, Maria said, surprised. Excellent. I have important information for you. You were named as the beneficiary in the will of your distant relative, Claudia Mendoza. Maria sank into a chair. Claudia Mendoza, her father's cousin. They had seen each other a few times in childhood, then lost contact. I don't understand, Maria said, confused. The woman passed away 2 months ago. No other relatives remain. The will was made in your favor. Could you come in tomorrow to process the paperwork? Victor Estrada asked in a businesslike tone. What exactly? An apartment in the city center, a country house, and financial assets. I'll disclose the full amount when we meet. Let's say at 10 a.m. Maria stared at the paper with the address, her handwriting shaking slightly. Claudia Mendoza. Maria remembered a tall woman with kind eyes. Aunt Claudia used to visit when Maria was about 10. She brought gifts, told stories. Then she disappeared from their lives. Why me? Maria wondered. Claudia must have had acquaintances, neighbors, maybe closer relatives. Why the girl she had only seen a few times as a child? Had she been quietly following their lives? Had she heard of Sergio's death? That Maria was raising her daughter alone? The thought seemed absurd, yet it wouldn't let go. Maria imagined tomorrow's visit to the notary, documents, stamps, signatures. And then, what next? A city center apartment? A country house? Money? Freedom? Maria instantly felt ashamed. Freedom? From what? From the responsibility of being a mother? From work? From Dolores? That thought struck like lightning, sudden and blinding. With the money, she could move out, find a new place far from her mother-in-law. Elena could go to a new school. They could start over. But Maria pulled herself back. What kind of thinking is that? Dolores is Elena's grandmother, her only living link to her father. Could she really take family away from her child? Maria nodded to herself, then remembered no one could see. Yes, all right. Please give me the address, she said. Maria wrote it down, said goodbye, and hung up. An inheritance. She hadn't seen that coming. Mom, what happened? Elena peeked out of her room. You look so pale. It's nothing, sweetheart. Go to sleep, Maria answered gently. Maria was alone again. The phone sat silently on the table while thoughts stormed in her head. She couldn't sleep. She lay in the dark, listening to her daughter's soft breathing through the wall. 7 years ago, she thought life was over. Turned out, it had only changed. It became quieter, more stable, more predictable. And now that predictability was in danger. Claudia Mendoza's inheritance was a stone dropped into the still water of their lives. Ripples would spread everywhere. Everything would change. Maria pictured Dolores's face when she found out about the money, the apartment, the country house. Her mother-in-law would want to control that too. To give advice, to scold, to dominate. Maybe I just won't tell her, the thought slipped in treacherously. No. Elena will let it slip anyway. Children can't keep secrets. Maria turned on her side. Sparse streetlights glowed outside the window. The city slept. And somewhere in the center, there was now an empty apartment that belonged to her. Tomorrow would be an interesting day. Morning greeted Maria with a strange feeling. As if the world had shifted slightly out of place. Yesterday's phone call still echoed in her mind. Apartment in the center, a country house, financial assets. Maria sat in the kitchen with a cup of coffee in hand. Elena had already left for school. The apartment was silent. Only the clock ticking on the wall and the low hum of the refrigerator broke the silence. At 8:30, the doorbell rang. Sharp. Insistent. Maria sighed. Dolores. Who else could come this early? Maria. Open up, her mother-in-law's voice rang, tense. We need to talk. Maria opened the door. Dolores stood there in her formal suit. Hair neatly styled, makeup fresh. A leather handbag in hand. Good morning, Senora Dolores, Maria greeted politely. Maria, get ready quickly. We're going to the notary, her mother-in-law announced with determination, stepping inside. Maria froze. How did Dolores know? I don't understand, Maria said cautiously. Don't play dumb. Dolores snapped. Ana Ramirez called yesterday, your aunt's neighbor. Told me Claudia Mendoza left you an inheritance. Dolores sat down on the couch, straightened her skirt, and gave Maria a measuring look. Why didn't you tell me right away? She asked sternly. Thought you could manage without your elders? Maria remembered Ana Ramirez, of course. An elderly woman from the next building. A lover of gossip and other people's secrets. The notary called late at night. I wanted to understand things first, Maria explained quietly. Understand? Dolores snorted. You can't handle these matters on your own. You'll get tricked, taken advantage of. It's a good thing I found out in time. She stood, paced the room, stopped by the window. Dress properly. We're going to the notary. Business attire. No jeans, she ordered. Maria felt that familiar pressure return. Dolores taking control, again. Senora Dolores, I can handle this myself, Maria said timidly. Yourself, her mother-in-law repeated mockingly. You've never dealt with an inheritance in your life. I remember handling all the paperwork when my husband died. I know every detail. Dolores opened her bag, pulled out a notepad and pen. Write down what we need to ask, she said briskly. First, exact value of the assets. What taxes need to be paid? Timeline for paperwork. Maria took the pen and wrote. Her hands moved automatically. Why do I always give in, she wondered. But no answer came. 7 years ago, when Sergio died, Dolores had also spoken of help. I'll handle everything, dear. You're grieving, you don't have the strength. And she did take care of it, funeral, memorial, documents. Maria had been grateful. But over time, that help became dependence. Every decision through her mother-in-law. Every purchase with her approval. Every step under control. It's for your own good, Dolores always said. And Maria believed it. Or wanted to believe it. And now it was all happening again, but the stakes were higher. Not thousands of pesos, but millions. Not a small flat, but prestigious property downtown. Am I going to be a puppet my whole life? Maria thought, painfully. One more important thing, Dolores added seriously. We need to discuss right away how the assets will be managed. You can't handle that kind of responsibility alone. Maria looked up from the notepad. What do you mean? Maria asked cautiously. I mean, the money is substantial, the apartment is valuable, the country house too. This is no joke, Maria. It requires control. Planning. Everything must be used wisely. Dolores sat down next to Maria and placed a hand on her daughter-in-law's shoulder. You understand, darling. I'm not doing this out of selfishness. I'm worried about Elena. About her future. That kind of money, its opportunity, education, a wedding, a better life, Dolores said in a soft, almost maternal tone. But Maria sensed something off. She always did. Of course, Senora Dolores. I care about Elena too, Maria agreed quietly. Good. Then let's make a deal. I'll help you with the documents, with spending plans, with choosing investments. Investments, spending plans, the words sounded elegant and convincing, but something inside her resisted. Get dressed. We don't want to be late to the notary, Dolores urged. Maria went to the bedroom and took out a dark suit, a white blouse, and modest heels. She looked at herself in the mirror. Who am I? Maria or Dolores's puppet, the bitter thought crossed her mind. 30 minutes later, they were riding a bus through the morning city. Dolores was reviewing her notebook full of questions, occasionally jotting something down. What kind of apartment did your aunt have? How many rooms? She asked. I don't know. I haven't seen it in years, Maria replied. We should take a look. Might be better to sell it and buy something smaller. Then you'll have money left over. Dolores was making plans. Her voice carried the confidence of someone who already owned the inheritance. The notary's office was in an old mansion in the city center, high ceilings, ornate moldings, heavy dark wood doors. An air of formality and respectability. The secretary led them to an office. Victor Estrada stood from behind his desk, a man in his 50s, gray-haired, thin-framed glasses, formal suit. Maria Rodriguez, he confirmed. Yes, that's me, Maria replied. Don Victor, I'm the mother of Maria's late husband, Dolores introduced herself. I've come to help my daughter-in-law sort things out. The notary gave Dolores a long look, then turned to Maria. I understand. Please, have a seat, Victor Estrada said, opening a folder and pulling out several documents. So, Senora Maria, Claudia Mendoza left a will in your favor. The estate consists of 3 parts. He put on his glasses and looked at the documents. First, a 3-bedroom apartment in a central district. Approximately 80 square meters. Market value, around $500,000. Dolores gasped. Maria said nothing. A country house on a 600 square meter lot. Estimated at $150,000, Estrada continued. And finally, financial assets and bank accounts totaling $340,000. Silence fell in the room, broken only by the ticking wall clock. Victor Estrada continued reviewing the papers. Maria stared at the official documents, trying to process what was happening. $1 million. The number felt unreal. Claudia Mendoza also left a letter, the notary added unexpectedly. A personal one. For you, Senora Maria. He pulled out a sealed envelope and handed it across the desk. You can read it at home, he added gently. Maria took the envelope with trembling hands. On the white paper, in elegant handwriting, to Maria, from Aunt Claudia. Dolores reached for the envelope. What does it say? Are there any additional conditions? She asked. This is a personal letter for the heir, Victor Estrada said, gently but firmly. For her eyes only. Dolores pursed her lips but said nothing. Maria tucked the envelope into her bag. For some reason, that letter seemed more important than all the documents and numbers. My God, Dolores whispered. Nearly $1 million. Victor Estrada removed his glasses and wiped them with a cloth. You have 6 months to claim the inheritance. You'll need to submit an application and provide documentation. Also, there's a probate fee. What's the fee? Dolores asked quickly. For distant relatives, it's 1% of the estate's value. Around $10,000, the notary explained. 10,000? Maria asked quietly. Yes. It's standard procedure. But the amount is well worth it, Estrada assured. Dolores leaned in and whispered. You don't have that kind of money. I'll lend it to you. You can pay me back later. She'd lend it, and then remind her for years. Maria nodded in agreement. What documents are required? Dolores asked, all business. Heir's ID, documents proving kinship, and the death certificate of the deceased, the notary listed. And how do you prove kinship? They were only distant relatives, Dolores clarified. There are archival records. Claudia Mendoza gathered them in advance. She was a very thorough woman, Victor Estrada said with a sad smile. She had cancer. She knew her time was short. So she prepared everything. Maria felt an odd gratitude toward the aunt she barely knew. A woman who had thought of her, cared, without even knowing how her life had turned out. But why Maria? Dolores asked. Didn't Claudia Mendoza have other relatives? She did, but they passed away earlier. Claudia was completely alone. But she remembered Maria. Said she saw something special in her. Something special. Maria tried to recall their few meetings, but the details were blurry. When can we view the apartment? Dolores asked practically. After the application is submitted. But I can give you the address now, the notary replied. He wrote it on a slip of paper and handed it to Maria. Avenida Libertad, Building 8, Apartment 15. Second floor. A very good location, he added. Dolores peeked over Maria's shoulder. City center. Prestigious area. Maria, do you understand what a fortune this is? Maria nodded but felt strangely detached. As if it were happening to someone else. The documents are ready. You can file the application today, Victor Estrada said. We're filing, Dolores declared. Maria, get your ID. The next hour was spent completing paperwork, signatures, stamps, copies. Dolores monitored every step. When do we pay the taxes? She asked. After the certificate of inheritance is issued. There's a grace period until then, the notary explained. Grace period, that's good. Gives us time to prepare, Dolores said with satisfaction. Maria listened to the conversation as if from afar. Numbers, percentages, deadlines, they blurred together. $1 million. An apartment. A country house. Life was suddenly turning upside down. But instead of joy, all Maria felt was anxiety. When all the formalities were done, Victor Estrada stood up. Congratulations, Senora Maria. The process is underway. In 6 months, you'll officially inherit a substantial estate. Thank you, Maria said softly. Outside, Dolores stopped. We're going to see the apartment now. And then we'll have a serious talk about plans, she announced. On the way to Claudia Mendoza's apartment, Dolores kept talking nonstop. One plan followed another. We need to assess the renovation needs right away. If it needs work, we'll do it, but no skimping on quality materials. It'll cost more later. We'll check the furniture too, antiques can be valuable. Maybe there's something worth keeping. And we need to ask the neighbors what the area's like, what the people are like. It matters for Elena, if you're going to live there. If you're going to live there. Dolores had already decided where and how Maria would live. Senora Dolores, maybe I can handle the apartment myself. Maria suggested timidly. Her mother-in-law stopped in the middle of the sidewalk. Yourself? Maria, you realize this isn't child's play. One mistake can be costly. You need someone experienced by your side. But still. No buts. Dolores cut her off sharply. I'm not doing this out of selfishness. I care about the family. About Elena. Maria, maybe we should go home first. I'm tired, Maria said quietly. Tired? From what? We're just getting started. These things can't wait. There was irritation in her voice. Dolores clearly had a full day planned. All right. Let's go, Maria agreed. The ride back was filled with more planning. Dolores spoke without stopping. We definitely need to inspect the apartment. Maybe it needs work, or maybe it has good furniture. We'll check the country house in spring. It's winter now anyway. And the money? Maria asked. That needs thought. Inflation's rising. Better to invest. Real estate, maybe. Or open a deposit account, the interest is good these days. It'll be enough for Elena's education. Maria nodded, agreed, but inside, a strange resistance was growing. Why is Dolores making all the decisions for me? This is my inheritance. The thought felt rebellious. Wrong. Her mother-in-law meant well, cared about the family. But something didn't feel right. Maria, are you listening to me? Dolores asked sharply. Yes, of course. I'm listening, Maria replied quickly. I was saying, we should draw up a power of attorney. Make it out to me. For convenience, so I can sign documents if you're at work. Power of attorney. The word felt like a red flag. Why would we need that? Maria asked cautiously. Why? For convenience. I have the time. You're working. You can't run to every office yourself. Logical, reasonable, practical. But it still unsettled her. I'll think about it, Maria said quietly. Dolores gave her a sharp look. What's there to think about? I'm not a stranger. I'm family. I care about Elena just as much as you. I know. It's an important decision. Exactly, Dolores agreed. That's why you need my help. The bus arrived at their stop. They got off. The day was gray, overcast. Dirty snow was piled along the roadside. At the entrance to the building, Dolores stopped. I'll come by tomorrow morning. We'll go see the apartment. And make up your mind about the power of attorney. Time doesn't wait, she said firmly. Maria went upstairs, undressed, made herself a coffee, and sat by the window. Nearly $1 million. A new life. Freedom. But why did it feel more like anxiety than joy? Why did it feel like a trap? Outside, snow was starting to fall. Fine, persistent. Maria watched the white flakes slowly cover the world. She pulled the envelope from her bag, stared at the familiar handwriting, then carefully opened it. Inside was a sheet of paper filled with neat lines. Dear Maria, if you're reading this, it means I'm no longer here. Don't be sad. I lived a good life. I know things are hard for you right now, raising your daughter alone. But you are strong. I remember you as a little girl, stubborn, independent. You stood up for yourself. I leave you everything I've saved. Not out of pity, but because I believe in you. You'll know how to use it wisely. Most importantly, don't let anyone make decisions for you. Not even with the best intentions. Be happy. Your Aunt, Claudia. Maria read the letter a second time. Then a third. The words "don't let anyone make decisions for you" echoed inside her. Maybe it was a sign. Tomorrow Dolores would come again. And the day after. And every day, until she got what she wanted. And what did she want? Control. Power. A sense of importance. Maria finished her coffee. Looked at the notes in her notebook, figures, plans, strategies. Everything was reasonable. Everything made sense. So why did it all feel so heavy? There was no answer. Only the growing unease. Wednesday began differently. Maria didn't wake to the alarm, but to a tight tension inside. Aunt Claudia's letter lay on her nightstand. The words "don't let anyone make decisions for you" echoed like a mantra. Her morning coffee tasted bitter. Outside, the same gray world, but something had changed within. It was as if a thin film had been lifted from her eyes. Elena ate her breakfast in silence. The girl could sense her mother's mood. Children always do. "Mom, are you okay?" Elena asked gently. "Yes, sweetheart. I'm okay," Maria answered calmly. And for the first time in a long while, it was true. "Is Grandma coming today?" Elena asked. "She is," Maria replied shortly. Elena looked at her mother carefully. Something in Maria's voice had changed. It sounded steady. Determined. "Mom, can I go to Lucia's after school?" "We'll do homework together," Elena asked. Smart girl. She could feel the storm coming. Maria smiled. "Of course. Just call me when you get there." Elena kissed her mother and ran off to school. Maria was alone again. But now the silence no longer weighed on her. It calmed her. She went to the hallway mirror. Looked at herself closely. A tired face. Submissive eyes. The habit of lowered shoulders. Who am I? Maria or Dolores's shadow? Today would bring an answer. At 10 a.m., the doorbell rang, sharp and insistent. Maria didn't rush to open. Let her get used to waiting. "Maria, what took you so long?" Dolores snapped, stepping inside. She was all dressed up, new handbag, expensive gloves, a brooch gleaming on her coat. Clearly, she was ready for a big day. "Good morning, Senora Dolores," Maria greeted evenly. "Get ready. I arranged a showing with the management company. They'll show us the apartment at 11, Dolores announced briskly. She walked into the kitchen, scanned it critically as always. And not even offering coffee after I came all this way, she added reproachfully. I'll make some, Maria said calmly. Have a seat. She put on the kettle, took out the nice cups, the ones she saved for special occasions. And today was a special occasion. What are your plans for the apartment? Dolores asked, settling at the table. We'll take a look first, Maria replied briefly. Of course. But I've been thinking. If it needs renovation, better to go all in now. It'll cost more later if we wait. Possibly, Maria replied neutrally. Dolores studied her daughter-in-law carefully. Something in Maria's tone felt different, and it unsettled her. Have you made a decision about the power of attorney? Dolores asked directly. Maria set the cup in front of her mother-in-law, sat down across from her, and straightened her back. I have, Maria said clearly. And? Dolores asked, hopeful. I'm not signing a power of attorney. Silence fell. Dolores slowly put down her cup. What? She asked again. I'm not signing it, Maria repeated calmly. I can handle this on my own. Dolores's face turned red. Her eyes narrowed. Have you lost your mind? She snapped. That kind of money. That kind of responsibility. And you're acting like a child? I'm thinking like an adult, Maria answered evenly. This is my inheritance. My decision. Dolores stood up from the table and began pacing the kitchen. What's gotten into you? Yesterday you were perfectly reasonable. And now? Who filled your head with nonsense? No one. I figured it out myself, Maria said coldly. Figured it out, the words landed like a slap. Dolores stopped in her tracks. Yourself? You? You've never made a serious decision in your life without me. I have. I just let you make them for me, Maria replied calmly. Let me. Dolores scoffed. I saved you from mistakes. From stupidity. And now you're being ungrateful. Maria stood up, walked to the window, and looked out at the gray sky. You know, Senora Dolores, 7 years ago, I was truly grateful for your help. Sincerely grateful, Maria's voice was quiet, but clear, each word measured. But over time, that help turned into control. Advice into commands. Involvement into dictatorship. Dolores stared at her, mouth open. What nonsense are you saying? What dictatorship? I care about the family. About my granddaughter. Maria turned to her. There was no submission in her eyes now. About the family? Or about control over the family? How dare you? Dolores burst out. I've given my life for you too. I helped, I supported. And I'm grateful, Maria nodded. But that doesn't give you the right to run my life. Dolores rushed to the table, grabbed her handbag. You don't know what you're doing. You'll regret this. You'll come crawling back. Begging. I won't, Maria said confidently. We'll see, Dolores hissed. Without me, you're nothing. Nobody. A zero. Maria walked to the door and opened it wide. Goodbye, Senora Dolores. Her mother-in-law stormed out. The door slammed so hard the glass rattled. Maria leaned against the doorframe. Her heart was racing, her hands were trembling, but inside, there was a deep calm. I did it. I finally did it. She walked to the bathroom. Looked in the mirror. The same face, but the eyes were different, alive, resolute. She splashed her face with cold water, composed herself, picked up the phone. She had to call work. She wouldn't be coming in today. There were more important things. Ana Garcia? It's Maria. May I take the day off? Family matters. Of course, Maria. Is everything all right? Yes. Everything's very good. Maria hung up. Looked at the clock. 10:30 a.m. She could still make it on time. But first, something important. She took out the notebook, the one where she'd written down all of Dolores's plans yesterday. She slowly tore out the pages. Threw them in the trash. Then she took a clean sheet. Wrote at the top, "My plans." She thought for a moment, then wrote, "View the apartment on my own. Talk to the neighbors. Decide what to do with the inheritance. Have an honest talk with Elena." That's enough for now. They were her plans. Her decisions. Her life. Maria got dressed, not in a formal suit, but in her usual clothes, a comfortable jacket, her favorite boots, a bright scarf. It was cold outside. The air stung her cheeks, but she could breathe easily, like a weight had lifted. The trip to the city center took half an hour. Maria walked slowly, taking in the sights. She hadn't noticed how beautiful the city was in winter for a long time. Avenida Libertad greeted her with old houses and clean sidewalks. Number 8 was a charming building with arched windows. At the entrance stood a middle-aged woman in a business suit, folder in hand. "Are you Maria?" the stranger asked. "I'm Olga Vargas, the property manager." "Yes, that's me," Maria confirmed. "Come in. I'll show you the apartment." They went up to the second floor. Olga pulled out the keys. "Where's your companion?" "We were scheduled for 2, the manager said, surprised. "Plans changed." "It's just me," Maria replied calmly. The door opened. Maria stepped inside and gasped. The apartment was beautiful, high ceilings, large windows, parquet floors, antique but well-maintained furniture. 80 square meters, Olga explained. 3 rooms, a kitchen, 2 bathrooms. All utilities are in good condition. Maria walked through the rooms in silence. In each one, she could feel her aunt's presence, books, photographs, fresh flowers on the windowsills. "Claudia Mendoza took great care of this place," the manager added. "She renovated 3 years ago, everything's high quality." "And the neighbors?" Maria asked. "Good people. Educated, quiet. No trouble at all." Maria walked over to the window. The view looked out onto a small square, snow-covered trees, benches, a playground. "Elena would like it here." "Can I see the apartment documents?" Maria asked. "Of course. The notary has everything, but I can tell you the basics now," replied Olga Vargas. She opened a folder and showed floor plans, certificates, and statements. "No debts. All utilities are paid. The apartment is legally clean." Maria reviewed the documents carefully, asked questions, clarified details. "I know how to handle paperwork. Why did I ever think I needed someone to supervise me?" "Thank you. Everything's clear," Maria said after half an hour. "When do you plan to move in?" Olga asked. "I don't know yet. I need time to think." "I understand. Decisions like this should be discussed with the family." They went downstairs and said goodbye. Maria stayed for a moment outside the entrance. She took out her phone and called Elena. "Mom," her daughter answered, surprised. "Is something wrong?" "No, sweetheart. Everything's fine. How's school?" "Okay. Where are you? You sound kind of happy." "Happy." Elena was right. It had been a long time. "I'm in the city, running errands. I'll tell you everything tonight." "Did Grandma come by?" "She did," Maria replied shortly. "And how did it go?" "Let's just say, it was mixed. We'll talk tonight." Maria ended the call. She looked at her watch. The day was still young. Where to go? She didn't want to go home. Everything there reminded her of her old life. The obedient Maria. Today, she wanted something different. Maria walked through the streets, looked into shop windows, peeked into cafes. She felt like a tourist in her own city. She stopped in front of a bookstore. She hadn't bought books in a long time. Time and money always went to necessities. She went inside. The smell of ink and new pages, rows of shelves, the silence of the reading room. Looking for something in particular, the clerk asked. No, just browsing, Maria smiled. She wandered among the shelves, picked up books, read the blurbs. She enjoyed the simple right to choose. She bought a mystery novel for herself, a guide to teenage psychology, and a beautiful leather-bound notebook. A gift, the clerk asked while ringing up her purchase. For myself, Maria answered honestly. It was getting dark. Time to head home. Elena would be back from her friend's house soon. On the way home, Maria thought about the day, the conversation with Dolores, the apartment, the future. What now? Dolores wouldn't give up. She'd look for ways to pressure her, through relatives, friends, maybe even through Elena. But that no longer mattered. The main decision had been made. The rest was just details. Near her building, Maria ran into a neighbor, Aunt Carmen. Maria, why was Dolores so angry today? Slamming doors, yelling up and down the stairs, the neighbor asked. I don't know, Aunt Carmen. Maybe she was in a bad mood, Maria answered diplomatically. But your face is glowing. Did you get good news? Maria smiled. You could say that. At home, Elena was at the kitchen table doing homework. Hi, Mom, she greeted cheerfully. How was your day? What's the big secret? Maria sat next to her daughter and put an arm around her shoulders. Elena, we need to talk. Seriously. About what? The girl asked, cautious now. About our life. The future. Grandma. Elena put her pen down and looked at her mother intently. Did something happen to Grandma? Grandma's fine. But things have changed for us. And Maria began to explain the inheritance, Dolores's plans, their conversation that day. Elena listened quietly, her eyes growing wider with every word. Mom, is that a good thing or a bad thing? She asked when Maria finished. Maria thought for a moment. I don't know, honey. But it's honest. Thursday began with a phone call. Maria was barely awake when the home phone rang. 7 a.m. Who could be calling so early? Hello, she answered sleepily. This is Valentina Castro, said a stern female voice. Sergio's sister. We need to talk. Maria was instantly awake. Valentina Castro, her late husband's older sister. She lived in another city. They rarely saw each other. Good morning, Valentina. What's wrong? Maria asked carefully. What's wrong is that you've completely lost your mind, Valentina snapped. Dolores told me everything. How you spoke to her yesterday. Fast worker, Maria thought. Dolores had wasted no time. Valentina, I think you've only heard one side of the story, Maria replied calmly. One side? What more is there to know? You kicked your husband's mother out. Took your daughter's grandmother away from her. That's betrayal. Maria imagined Dolores telling her version of events. I didn't kick anyone out. I simply said I would be making my own decisions, Maria explained patiently. You? Making decisions? Valentina scoffed. You couldn't take a step without Dolores. And now you think you're something special. Elena stirred behind the wall. She was waking up. Maria had to end the call. Valentina, let's talk another time. I need to get Elena ready for school, she offered. Don't you dare hang up. I'm not done, Valentina raised her voice. Well, I am, Maria said firmly and hung up. Her hands were slightly shaking, but she felt calm. The confidence from yesterday hadn't left her. Elena shuffled into the kitchen, messy and sleepy. Mom, who was calling so early? She asked with a yawn. Aunt Valentina. Grandma complained to her about me, Maria answered honestly. Ah, I see, Elena nodded. What did Aunt Valentina say? The same as Grandma. That I was wrong. Elena poured herself some tea, stirred in sugar thoughtfully. Mom, do you regret what happened yesterday? She asked suddenly. Maria looked at her daughter closely. Smart child. She could sense doubt. No, sweetheart. I don't regret it. What do you think? Maria asked sincerely. I think you were brave, Elena said seriously. It was about time. Out of the mouths of children, Maria thought. She hugged her daughter. Thank you, Elenka. Your opinion means a lot to me. Mom, what happens next? Grandma won't back off, Elena added, worried. No, she won't, Maria agreed. But we'll handle it. Elena left for school. Maria was alone again, with her morning coffee and her thoughts. Valentina was just the beginning. Dolores is mobilizing the entire family, Maria thought. She needed to be ready for a siege. At 9 a.m, the phone rang again. Maria didn't rush to pick it up. Let it ring. Half an hour later, there was a knock at the door. Maria looked through the peephole. Dolores was at the door. Not alone. Next to her stood a middle-aged man in a dark coat. She brought reinforcements, Maria thought. She opened the door. Good morning, Senora Dolores, she greeted neutrally. This is my nephew Carlos, Dolores introduced the man. Valentina's son. He came especially to talk to you. Carlos resembled the late Sergio, same facial features, same eyes, but there was a coldness in his gaze. Please, come in, Maria said politely. They settled in the living room. Dolores sat on the couch like it was a throne. Carlos took a seat beside her. The gray walls looked especially bleak in the morning light. Maria, my mother told me everything, Carlos began seriously. You're making a big mistake. What mistake exactly? Maria asked calmly. You're pushing away your family. You're depriving Elena of the support of her relatives. That's not right, Carlos said, his voice authoritative. He was clearly used to being listened to. Carlos, could you tell me exactly what Dolores told you? Maria asked. She said you received an inheritance and suddenly got full of yourself. Decided you don't need anyone anymore. Maria nodded. Predictable. Did she also tell you about the power of attorney? She asked. What power of attorney? Carlos asked, surprised. Maria turned to Dolores. Her mother-in-law looked away. Dolores wanted me to sign a power of attorney giving her control over the entire inheritance. For convenience, she said, Maria explained calmly. Carlos turned to his aunt. Is that true? He asked sternly. Well, I just wanted to help, Dolores hesitated. Maria has no experience. A power of attorney for $1 million? Carlos repeated, sharply. Dolores blushed. It wasn't for me. It was for the family. For Elena. Carlos grew quiet. Maria could see he was reevaluating the situation. I see, he said slowly. Maria, what do you plan to do with the inheritance? I haven't decided yet. I'm exploring my options, Maria answered honestly. On your own? Without consultants? If needed, I'll consult professionals, but the decisions will be mine. Carlos nodded. That's wise. Financial advisors are better than relatives for these things. Dolores bristled. Carlos, how can you say that? I'm not a stranger. A power of attorney for that amount is serious. You understand that, right? Carlos said patiently. I do. But I've always looked after Maria. I helped, supported her. For which I'm grateful, Maria interjected. But care doesn't entitle you to control my property. Carlos looked at Maria thoughtfully. What about family relations? You don't want to cut ties, do you? Good question, Maria thought. She considered her reply. No, I don't. But only if it's on equal terms. Without anyone trying to control me. What do you mean? I mean, Dolores remains Elena's grandmother. But she doesn't get to make decisions for us. Dolores jumped up from the couch. How dare you set conditions for me? I'm older, wiser, more experienced. Maybe, Maria agreed. But it's still my life. Your life? What about Elena? About Sergio's memory? Have you forgotten everything? Maria stood and walked over to a photo of her husband on the sideboard. The old frame gleamed under the desk lamp. I remember everything. And I know Sergio would have wanted me to be happy. Not to live under constant control. Sergio never defied me, Dolores countered. Sergio avoided conflict, Maria said quietly. That doesn't mean he agreed with everything. Carlos remained silent, then stood up. I think we should go. Give Maria time to think. Carlos, you came here to help. Dolores protested. I am helping. My advice is not to rush, he replied calmly. Dolores stared at him, confused. What's with all of you? Did Maria brainwash you too? No one brainwashed me. I just understand that Maria has the right to decide for herself. What right? She doesn't understand anything. Carlos gently took Dolores by the elbow. Let's go. We'll talk at home. They left. Dolores slammed the door. Carlos nodded an apology before exiting. Maria was alone again. She sat down on the couch. Her hands were trembling. Carlos turned out to be more reasonable than I expected, she thought with relief. But it wasn't over. Dolores would find new allies. At 1 p.m., her phone rang again. Unknown number. Hello? Maria answered cautiously. Maria? This is Sylvia, Dolores' friend. I need to talk to you. And so it begins, Maria sighed. I'm listening, Sylvia. Not over the phone. Can we meet? At the cafe on the square. 3 o'clock. What for? Maria asked directly. You'll understand when you come. It's important. Maria thought, refuse? Or find out what Dolores is up to. All right. I'll be there at 3. The cafe on the square was nearly empty. Winter sunlight streamed through the large windows. At a corner table sat a woman around 60, elegant and well-groomed. Sylvia? Maria asked. Yes. Please, sit down. Maria sat across from her. The waiter brought menus. Coffee, please, Maria said. Same for me, Sylvia added. They sat in silence until the coffee arrived. Sylvia studied Maria with a sharp gaze. You know what surprises me? Sylvia finally said. You're nothing like Dolores described. And how did she describe me? Maria asked. Weak. Spineless. Incapable of making decisions. Maria smiled. I've changed. Sylvia nodded. I can see that. And Dolores doesn't accept it. She doesn't, Maria agreed. She asked me to speak with you. To convince you to return to how things were. But I decided to warn you instead, Sylvia said unexpectedly. Maria was surprised. Warn me? About what? Sylvia leaned across the table. Dolores is planning to contact Child Protective Services. She wants to file a report saying you are an unfit mother. Child Services, Maria thought, a chill in her stomach. On what grounds? She asked quietly. She'll say the money's gone to your head. That you've neglected your daughter for the sake of your inheritance. Maria set down her cup. Her hands were trembling. Why are you telling me this? Aren't you her friend? Sylvia gave a sad smile. I was her friend. Until I saw what she's willing to do for money. What do you mean? Your Dolores is telling everyone the inheritance should have gone to the family. That Claudia Mendoza wasn't in her right mind when she wrote the will. Maria listened silently. She's even spoken with a lawyer. She plans to contest the will. Contest it? Maria repeated. Yes. Claiming that you're an unworthy heir. Unworthy heir. Maria tried to process the words. Sylvia, why are you really telling me all this? She asked again. Because justice matters more than friendship. Claudia Mendoza was of sound mind. And she had every right to leave her money to whoever she wanted. Sylvia finished her coffee and stood up. Be prepared, Maria. The battle won't be easy. Sylvia left. Maria stayed at the table, alone. Outside, dusk was slowly falling. Child Services. Court. Contesting the will, Maria listed mentally. Dolores had declared war. A real one. Maria returned home in a low mood. Elena hadn't yet come back from school. Good. I need time to think. What now? Maria was tormented by the question. I could back down. Go back to how things were. Let Dolores control the inheritance. But then all the courage from yesterday would be for nothing. Maria took out her new notebook. She wrote at the top. Action plan. 1. Find a good lawyer. 2. Gather documents confirming Aunt Claudia's mental health. 3. Speak to neighbors who knew her. 4. Prepare Elena for potential challenges. If Dolores wants a war, she'll get one, Maria thought firmly. But she would fight it honorably. At 6 in the evening, Elena came home, cheerful, cheeks pink from the cold. Hi, Mom. How was your day? She asked, kissing her mother on the cheek. It's been complicated, sweetheart. We need to talk. Elena immediately turned serious. What happened? Maria told her about Carlos and Dolores's visit, her talk with Sylvia, and her mother-in-law's plans. Elena listened silently. Her face grew more serious with each word. Mom, what's child protection? She asked when the story ended. It's when the government checks whether parents are taking good care of their children, Maria explained. What if they believe Grandma? Maria hugged her. Then we'll prove that everything is fine. And what if we can't? We will, Maria said firmly. We absolutely will. Elena leaned into her. Mom, maybe we should just give in? So we don't have to fight. She's scared, Maria realized. She stroked her daughter's hair. Elena, if we give in now, Dolores will learn that threats get her what she wants. And she'll keep threatening us. And if we don't give in? Then she'll learn that we have boundaries. And she'll have to learn to respect them. Elena looked up. Mom, aren't you afraid? Maria thought for a moment. I am. But I'm still going to do what I believe is right. Then I'm not afraid either, Elena said firmly. That evening, while her daughter did homework, Maria sat by the window, thinking about tomorrow. Dolores didn't expect resistance. She thought she'd scare me into giving up, Maria reflected. But fear only works on those with something to lose. And Maria had already lost the most important thing, herself. 7 years ago. And only now was she starting to get it back. That, she couldn't lose again, at any cost. Outside, snow was falling, soft, quiet, covering the world in a white blanket. Tomorrow would bring a new day. New challenges. New decisions. But tonight, Maria was calm, for the first time in a long time. Friday arrived quietly. Maria woke up with the feeling that something would be resolved today. Outside, winter sunlight poured through the windows. For the first time in a week, the sky was clear. Elena ate her breakfast silently. She could sense her mother's tension. Mom, are you going to work today? She asked. Yes. But if anything happens, I'll come immediately, Maria assured her. Okay. Is Grandma coming? I don't know. Maybe. Elena nodded and left for school. Maria was alone again. At 8 a.m., the phone rang. Maria picked up. Maria? This is Elena Vasquez from Child Protective Services, said a formal female voice. We've received a report. We need to meet. It started, Maria thought, a chill in her stomach. Of course. When would be convenient, she answered calmly. Today at 2 p.m. at our office. Do you know the address? I'll find it. I'll be there on time. Maria hung up. Her hands were shaking, but her mind was clear. She needed a lawyer fast. Maria grabbed the phone book. She found the legal services section and started calling. The first firm declined, too little time to prepare. The second wanted an excessive fee. The third, justice law firm. Guillermo Suarez speaking, a calm, professional voice answered. Good afternoon. I need urgent help. It's a matter of inheritance and child protection, Maria said, clearly distressed. When's the appointment? The lawyer asked matter-of-factly. Today at 2 o'clock. Understood. Coming right away. We'll take care of it, Guillermo Suarez said confidently. Maria got dressed and headed to the city center. The law firm was located in a business center. Guillermo Suarez turned out to be a man in his 40s. A calm gaze behind his glasses inspired trust. Tell me everything, the lawyer said shortly but in a reassuring tone. Maria explained the entire situation, the inheritance, the conflict with Dolores, the threats. I see, Guillermo Suarez nodded thoughtfully. A classic case. Relatives smell money. And what about child services? Can they take my daughter away? Maria asked, worried. Extremely unlikely. But they will conduct an investigation. You need to be prepared to answer questions. What kind of questions? About your income, living conditions, parenting. Standard stuff. Guillermo Suarez opened his notebook. Is Elena doing well at school? Yes. Any extracurriculars? Music school and dance classes. Excellent. And how is she at home? Like any teenager. Sometimes argues, but generally well behaved. The lawyer jotted everything down. That's enough. Just answer calmly. Don't try to justify yourself. Just state the facts. And the will? Dolores wants to contest it. That's more complicated. But if Claudia Mendoza was of sound mind, the chances of success are very low. How do we prove that? You'll need medical records, witness statements from neighbors, anything that confirms Claudia was mentally competent. Maria nodded. And how much will this cost? The first consultation is free. We'll agree on the rest later. At 1:30 p.m., they arrived at the Child Protection Office. A gray, outdated building, long linoleum corridors, and a stale institutional smell. Elena Vasquez greeted them in her office. A woman in her 50s, dressed in a strict suit, with the tired look of a government employee. Please, have a seat, she said flatly, without emotion. We received a report from Dolores Moreno. She claims you are not providing adequate care for your daughter. What exactly am I being accused of? Maria asked calmly. Elena Vasquez glanced at the folder. That after receiving an inheritance, you neglected your daughter. That she's left to her own devices. That the mother only thinks about money. That's not true, Maria said firmly. Then tell me how things really are. Maria explained her life with Elena, her job, Elena's schooling, their time together. And the inheritance? Vasquez clarified. I received it 3 days ago. I'm still working on the paperwork. And how has it affected your relationship with your daughter? It hasn't. Elena still goes to the same school. We live in the same apartment. Nothing has changed. Elena Vasquez made some notes. And what about the grandmother? Why the conflict? Maria told her about Dolores's attempts to get power of attorney, her desire to control the inheritance. I see, Vasquez nodded. It's a familiar story. The conversation lasted about half an hour. Elena Vasquez asked about income, housing, future plans. All right, the official said at last, seemingly satisfied. We'll conduct an inspection within the week. Talk to your daughter and your neighbors. If everything checks out, we'll close the case. Thank you, Maria said with relief. Outside, Guillermo Suarez smiled. It went well. Elena Vasquez is experienced. She saw through it right away. And what next? Now we prepare for a possible court case about the will. If Dolores files a claim, and she probably will, $1 million is no small sum. Maria returned home tired but calm. Elena was already back from school. Mom, how did it go? Her daughter asked anxiously. Fine. The people at Child Services are reasonable. What did they ask? How we live. Whether I take good care of you. And what did you say? The truth. That everything is fine. Elena hugged her mother. Mom, I don't want you to suffer because of me. Don't be silly. I'm not fighting because of you. I'm fighting for us. That evening, the doorbell rang. Maria looked through the peephole. A stranger was standing on the landing. Who is it? Maria asked. My name is Ana. I was Claudia Mendoza's neighbor. Can we talk? Maria opened the door. A woman in her 60s, simply dressed, kind eyes. Come in, Maria invited her. Ana went to the kitchen and sat at the table. I heard someone is trying to contest Claudia Mendoza's will, Ana said directly. Yes. My husband's relatives think the inheritance should have gone to them, Maria replied tiredly. Nonsense, Ana snorted indignantly. Claudia Mendoza was of sound mind until her last day. You knew her well? Of course. We were neighbors for 20 years. Claudia often came over. Ana reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. She asked me to give you this if anything happened. Maria took the envelope. It read, Maria. In case problems arise. Inside was a sheet of paper with phone numbers and addresses. These are Claudia's friends, Ana explained. They're all ready to confirm that she was mentally sound. Thank you, Maria said gratefully. Claudia loved you very much. Said you reminded her of herself when she was young, strong, but kind. We barely spoke. She kept an eye on you. Knew about your husband's death. Knew you were raising your daughter alone. She wanted to help. Ana stood up. If you need anything, call. We're all behind you. After Ana left, Maria sat for a long time holding the letter. Claudia Mendoza thought of everything, she thought warmly. Aunt didn't just leave me an inheritance, she left a defense plan. Elena was doing homework in her room. Outside, it was growing dark. An ordinary winter evening. But Maria felt something had shifted. The tension was gone. The fear had passed. Whatever Dolores plans now, we're ready, Maria thought calmly. They had a good lawyer. Support from Claudia's neighbors. And most importantly, the truth on their side. Maria took out her notebook. Plans for the future. 1. Move into Aunt Claudia's apartment. 2. Find a good school nearby for Elena. 3. Open an education fund for her daughter. 4. Think about her own career. A new life begins now, Maria thought with confidence. A life without fear. Without control. Without humiliation. A life she chose for herself. Outside, snow was falling, light, fluffy. Covering the old world with a white blanket. And tomorrow would be a new day. The first day of a new life. Maria stood by the window of her new apartment, looking out at the spring park. The trees were covered in fresh green. Children laughed on the playground. Sunlight danced on the polished wooden floor. A year had passed like a single day, and like an entire lifetime. "Mom, do you remember when we first came here a year ago?" Elena asked as she entered the living room. The girl had grown over the year. She was more confident, more mature. The same determination that lived in her mother's eyes now sparkled in hers. "I remember, sweetheart," Maria smiled. "You said it was beautiful here. And that I'd like the new school," Elena added. "I was right." Maria hugged her daughter. A lot had changed in a year. Elena truly came to love her new school, made friends, joined a theater club, and blossomed before Maria's eyes. "And how's math going?" Maria asked. "It's fine. Anna Maria explains things better than at my old school," Elena answered honestly. Over the year, Maria realized they had made the right decision. The move hadn't been easy, but it was worth it. The new apartment had become a real home. Maria had kept Aunt Claudia's furniture but added her own touches, family photos, Elena's drawings, flowers on the windowsills. "Mom, is Dolores coming today?" Elena asked cautiously. Maria looked at the clock. 1:30. Their guest would arrive soon. "She is." At 3:00, Maria answered calmly. Her relationship with Dolores hadn't improved overnight. It took 6 months of difficult conversations. But the result was unexpected. They began to understand each other better. After the court officially dismissed the attempt to contest the will and the Child Protection Agency closed the investigation, Dolores changed. Not immediately. Slowly. First came the rage. Then resentment. Then months of silence. The first call came in March. Hesitant. Unsure. "Maria? It's me, Dolores. How is Elena?" "She's well," Maria had replied cautiously. "Would you like to speak with her?" The conversation lasted 5 minutes. But it broke the ice. Gradually, the calls became regular. Dolores asked about school, health, and plans, but she no longer gave advice, no longer criticized. She simply showed interest. Then, in May, something remarkable happened. Dolores asked permission to visit. "I want to see how you're living," the mother-in-law said. "And to apologize." The apology was sincere, with tears and the admission of past mistakes. "I was afraid of losing my connection to my son," Dolores confessed. "I thought if I didn't try to control things, you'd leave me behind." "And it turned out to be the opposite," Maria said gently. "Yes, the opposite," Dolores agreed. Since then, their visits became routine, once a month. Dolores came over, brought gifts, shared news from her life. But she never tried to take control again. Elena grew fond of this new version of her grandmother. The one who listened instead of lecturing. Who asked for her opinion instead of imposing her own. "You know, Mom," Elena said thoughtfully, "Dolores has become kinder." "People change, if you give them a chance," Maria replied. At 3:00, the doorbell rang. Dolores climbed the stairs slowly. The year had added silver to her hair, but taken the harshness from her eyes. "Good afternoon, Senora Dolores," Maria greeted her warmly. "Maria, my dear." Elena, the mother-in-law, hugged her granddaughter. "How's school?" "Good, Grandma. Tomorrow's the play." "I'm playing a princess." Elena beamed. "A princess? How wonderful. Is your costume ready?" "Mom made it." "Want to see?" Elena dashed off for the dress. Dolores sat at the table. "Maria, you've done a great job," she said sincerely. "I can see how happy Elena is. How confident." "Thank you," Maria smiled. "And how's your new job? Do you like it?" Maria had joined a larger company. The pay was better, the responsibilities more engaging, and management appreciated her professionalism. I do. I'm going on a business trip next week. First time in years, she admitted. And Elena? She'll stay with a friend. They've been dreaming of a pajama party. Dolores paused. Maria, may I ask something? She said carefully. Of course. Have you forgiven me? Maria looked at Dolores closely. Her eyes were filled with regret and hope. I forgave you a long time ago, Maria said honestly. Anger destroys. And I needed strength to build. I've learned a lot this year, Dolores said quietly. I've realized that love isn't about control, it's about trust. It's hard to accept, Maria nodded. Hard, but necessary. Elena returned with her dress. Blue, airy, like a cloud. Beautiful. Dolores exclaimed. You'll be a real princess. Will you come to the play? Elena asked. Of course I will. How could I miss such an event? The evening was warm and pleasant. Dolores talked about her neighbors and asked about summer plans. Elena showed her school projects and recited poems. As Dolores was leaving, Elena gave her a big hug. Grandma, will you stop arguing with Mom? I will, sweetheart. I promise. And no more advice unless we asked for it. Dolores laughed. I'll try to hold back. Good. Then come visit more often. After Dolores left, Maria sat on the couch. Elena snuggled up beside her. Mom, are you happy? Her daughter asked unexpectedly. Maria thought for a moment. A year ago, this question would have left her speechless. What is happiness? The absence of problems? Getting what you want? Now she knew the answer. Yes, sweetheart. I'm happy, Maria said confidently. Why? Because we live the way we want. We make our own decisions. We take responsibility for our mistakes. And we're not afraid? We are afraid. But we still do what we believe is right. Elena leaned into her mother. Thank you, Mom. For what? For teaching me to be strong. Maria stroked her daughter's hair. Outside, the sun was setting. The first year of their new life was coming to a close. Ahead lay summer, vacations, plans, and dreams. Ahead lay the life they had chosen for themselves. Aunt Claudia's inheritance hadn't just changed their financial situation. It had given them the most valuable gift of all, the freedom to be themselves. Maria stood up. She went to the desk and took out a sheet of fine paper. Dear Aunt Claudia, she wrote. A year has passed since you gave us a new life. I want to tell you how we're living now. Outside, the first stars lit up the sky. Somewhere among them, a kind woman was smiling. A woman who believed in her niece's strength. And she had not been wrong. Dear listeners, did you enjoy the story? Have you ever encountered a situation where an adult truly changed? Or do you believe that people always stay the same? We look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments.
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe to the channel.